Hey everybody, I'm Michael Monaco.
And I'm Bobby Salveson, and we are the Hazmat Guys, bringing you the knowledge and insight to make your job a little bit easier and safer. But before today's show, let's listen to our sponsors. Hey guys, did you know that CBRNE Convergence is heading back to Orlando from the 6th to the 8th of November 2018, bringing you 3 days of workshops, lectures, and interactive sessions delivered by speakers from around the world on the latest issues and approaches to CBRNE and hazmat. This year's pre-conference workshop is on mass fatalities, a must for first responders. To register for the visits, go to cbrneworld.com/convergence2018. Hey guys, you've heard us talk about Dahlgren Decon and its effectiveness on fentanyl, chemical warfare agents, and ticks and TIMs. Firstline Technology has launched a new Decon field guide app for your iPhone and Android device. It has a complete threat library and explains Dahlgren Decon functionality against bulk contamination and contaminated surfaces. It also has complete instructions for mixing and applying Dahlgren Decon, as well as reactivity concerns, suggested ratios, and dwell times. Download today on the Apple App Store and coming soon to Android. Hey everybody, we have a great episode coming up today, but before we start the show, we want to share some exciting news from the Hazmat Guys. As some of you may know, we have been working on a hazmat drill book for quite some time, and we're pleased to announce that it is finally available on Amazon. This book was written by contributors from the hazmat community based all around the United States, and we think it will provide a ton of value for both you and your department. The title of the book is The National Emergency Response Hazmat Drills, 50 Drills to Improve Your Team, better known as NERD. No, this was not a mistake. Anyway, the goal of the book has been to help the hazmat community, and we hope that you'll take a moment to check it out and share it. We have the link in the show notes, and if you have a moment, please leave us a positive review in Amazon. We'd be very grateful. We wanted to get NERD on the bestseller list and give more exposure to our community. Again, the book is called National Emergency Response Hazmat Drills, 50 Drills to Improve Your Team, and there's both a paperback and Kindle version available. Thank you, everybody.
Now let's get into the show. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Hazmat Guys. Today we are going to start a series on a very widespread chemical that gets an awful lot of attention, and that is hydrogen fluoride.
Yes, it's the boogeyman, but...
Almost as bad as the F word, fentanyl.
Oh.
Don't say it 3 times.
Oh my, they'll jump out of the mirror. So before we get into that, I just want to thank Pennsylvania, Joe Landis, and all the men and women over there that made that possible. It was a great time. Next week, September 5th of 2018, I'll be in New Hampshire with everybody's favorite Dr. Christina Baxter, putting on quite the show. And then after that, I think we're off to Plymouth, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And I believe after that, I should be all squared away for the New York State Leadership Seminar, which is something that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, being a leader.
Yes.
More of a reactor.
We're like a sheep.
I'm a sheeple.
Follow the herd.
So we're going to be doing some fun stuff over there about, command hazmat and stuff like that, incident commandership. So should be interesting stuff, but I'm kind of excited to get into a series again, something we can kind of explore in depth.
Yeah, and this is going to be a little bit different of a series. We're going to be going through some educational information, some history background, and then we plan on filling in operations, procedures, and getting more into depth via interviews with people who are experts in the field, who have performed lots and lots of control releases and things along those lines. So we should be able to get a lot of really good information over the next couple shows.
Yeah, and one other thing about this thing is because this is going to be a multiple part series, we're going to try to keep them in number order.
Right.
We're not guaranteeing we are.
Right, because we're relying on interviews.
Yeah.
So that means if a person's not available for a couple weeks, hey, then that means we fill in a show with another show, and then we get back to the episode.
So just bear with us. But this one is basically the overview, the wide angle view of this. So, yeah.
Yeah, so hydrogen fluoride. All right, like so many other acids, they have many, many uses in them, and you literally find them in every corner of your neighborhood. However, unlike most acids, this is a little bit different, all right? And we actually will see very, very little use of this on the retail level.
Right. This is one of those acids that has a stigma. us in the industry, or actually in the response mode, we think about hydrofluoric as the boogeyman. Like, this is the stuff, and legitimately,
Right.
it will screw you up. It is a different class of acid unto itself. But this means that we will not likely see this in the. Well, it doesn't really mean that you will not see it in a residential setting, is what I'm saying.
Right, you could. Like the crazy chemist that brings the
Yeah.
stuff home. Like, you can
Like
see
me.
it.
Like,
But
I have a bottle of this.
there's
stuff,
really no use for it in a home setting.
right. The toxicity of this chemical doesn't play well with the whole risk versus benefits reward system decide Gadapper
Yeah.
kind of flow chart.
Yeah, when you're looking to clean your countertops, like when you got Windex or you got HF, the HF will kill you, the Windex won't. You kind of like, all right, I'll go with the Windex. Totally understandable. I always find it really good to go through a little bit of basics on how these things are used. And it almost accomplishes two things. One, you get a really good idea of how this chemical reacts and what it can do if you kind of think about what it's normally used for. And the second idea is it helps you understand the situations in which you might find it in.
Right. Let's say some random, maybe useless facts about them, but it has the ability to dissolve sedimentary rocks, right? So geologists will take archaeology sites. They'll take those things that have those very, very small bones in them. They'll place them in HF, and it will move away the rock and kind of leave the
bone.
bone.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
It also, because of this, makes a phenomenal ingredient in drinking water.
Wait a second. I kind of know that fluoride goes into drinking, but why is it perfect?
Well, it's not, but I didn't have any other segue to go into that, so I just kind of ran with it.
You're a jerk.
I know. All right. But it is actually a perfect example of a substance that is super, super, super toxic. But even that super, super, super toxic substance at the right dose has a therapeutic advantage to it, or a therapeutic benefit. And drinking what amounts to be extremely, extremely diluted hydrofluoric acid is really good for your teeth.
Yeah, and the small amount of fluoride ions that we drink in the water actually goes into your saliva and then strengthens the enamel in your teeth. That's why you find all these toothpastes with fluoride protection and whatnot in it.
Yeah, so you got the fluoride in the teeth, the fluoride in the water. We're all good to go. Interestingly, or not interestingly, depending on your point of view, HF is a chemical that fluorinates the water, right? So the actual chemical that they're looking for is HF, but most places don't add HF to the water. They actually use other chemicals. One of the most popular is something called silicoic fluoride.
Interesting. Yeah, this silicoic fluoride breaks down to hydrofluoric acid. So it's kind of like the beginning of it. So there are two other chemicals that are used to do the same thing. So just don't assume that your local water treatment place has HF on site. For example, I was recently in California, and on site they have hydrofluoric, but it's synthesized in a hangar. Interesting stuff.
What did they synthesize it in the hangar for?
It was to plate metal products for airplanes.
So they literally manufactured the stuff on site. What was involved with that manufacturing?
I don't remember exactly the way it is. I will write it in the show notes, but it's at San Francisco Airport. And they have a whole plating section there, and they have big vats of of chemicals, and they put it together. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it did have a process.
It's also used in pharmaceutical industry, and the creation of most of the fluorinated I'm not saying that right. Halogenated hydrocarbons with fluoride, because I can't actually pronounce what I'm supposed to, that we lovingly call refrigerants. Hydrofluoric acid is a major ingredient used to create those.
Right. It's also used as a precursor for other things like separating uranium isotopes.
The electrical component world utilizes this in the creation of a lot of the electronics that go into things like circuit boards, wire filaments, semiconductors, metal parts. HF is an intricate use in this little industrial world.
Yeah, the first time I actually heard of hydrofluoric acid was it was before I went to school for chemistry and stuff like that. And where you heard about it was glass etching. So in the art world, if you want to etch glass and give the effect of sandblasting, you'll put HF or a gel or a paste of it on there. But it's used extensively in cleaners, rust removers, herbicides. The list goes on. And it's really a great example to know why it's important to know what's in your first due area or your county or whatever you respond to. And don't just assume that it's in, it's an industry or we're in an area that doesn't use it. Go and knock on the door. Go to that local place that does. Even that art place has HF.
Yeah. You'd be amazed what little things, tiny amounts, are in everyday mom and pop shops.
Yeah.
All right, but the EPA actually regulates industry to large amounts of this. So if you have more than 1,000 gallons of HF in a concentration that's 50% or greater, you are required to put together a risk management plan and submit that. Across the country, there are close to 300 facilities that have these submitted plans.
Right. But now that deals with people that are storing true HF. If you're synthesizing on scene and you're putting part A and part B to make HF, that is not applicable to you.
Right.
Right. So the best place to get your information about what has HF in your area is something called a Tier 2 reporting system. And that would be found by foiling your local emergency planning committee or your state emergency SERC or your LEPC. Go and start with the local one first, but you can foil it. And doing a foil is not a dirty word. It's not like I'm forcing or summoning them to do it. It's a common thing. You're just putting in a request for information, and they'll supply it to you.
Right. You have the right to know it.
Yeah.
It's part of the law.
It's the Right to Know Act.
It is. Ooh.
That's
a really good name. Not often they make really good names for things, but the Right to Know Act, that really
it's
actually...
very applicable.
Yeah, it's very applicable. Kudos for whoever came up with that. All right. We want to talk a little bit about exposure, but in order to first talk about exposure, it's always good to talk about how you're exposed to it. So going into the physical properties of this product is kind of where we're going to start off with here. And from a physical properties standpoint, we commonly see HF in two forms, both in a liquid and a solid. And this point really kind of confuses people that are new to the hazmat world, that are kind of like not quite sure about chemical physical properties. So we're just going to kind of all get on the same page. All right, so we want to talk a little bit about exposure to this product, but in order to do that, first we need to dive a little bit into the chemical physical properties, because obviously the only way that we're going to be exposed to it is if we don't fully understand the chemical physical properties in the form that we're going to find it in. All right, so from a physical property standpoint, we commonly see HF in two forms. We see it in both the liquid and the gaseous form. At this point, right, this is where some new people often start to get a little bit confused when they've just entered the world of hazmat and they're still understanding and grasping chemical physical properties.
So let's first go into when HF is a gas. And like many gases, it's going to be transported and used in a high-pressure cylinder. How do I know it's high pressure? It looks like a bullet. Doesn't have those wide shoulders, right? Which is cool because we have a couple of different ways to identify the product inside. I just discussed one, the shouldering, and that this thing has like a bullet-type shape. One way. Another way is the actual valve number, right? So if we look on the actual valving, right, where the valve itself, it'll have what they call a CGA number, compressed gas association number. And that number for a hydrogen fluoride valve is going to be a 660. So it'll be like CGA 660.
And these tanks come in all sorts of sizes. There are some tanks out there that are 10 inches by 48 inches, some that are 23 by 66. There's even some cute little small guys that are like 9 by 19. All right, but the one thing that's going to pretty much remain true through all these is that they're all going to be steel tanks.
That's actually interesting now, because we're just going to backpedal a second, because acids and steel tanks don't go well together.
Yeah.
So
How do you justify that? How do you justify steel in an acid?
Well, I'm gonna go. So first off, this is not. We haven't really discussed this out, but there are many occurrences where there's acids going into unlined steel tanks for over-the-road transport, which goes against what we know, where we got to put it in poly or a line drum, and the corrosive 312 trailers, that's not possible. But it is actually possible. In real industry, it is possible, because if you don't have water, then the acid can't either accept or donate the protons in order to be effective as a corrosive.
Yeah, this is the exact same principle as to why we should wet pH paper. At least have one of your pH papers wet before you go dipping it in something. Or if you do dip a dry one in and you pull it out and there's no reaction, then you should probably wet it and try it again, because a pure quote-unquote acid isn't going to do what acids do without the water that it's doing it in.
You might hear this called anhydrous, lacking water. So it's all right. Let's continue. Not for these rabbit holes. It's a gas with a molecular weight of 20. Okay, and the ideal H, which is where you're going to get screwed up, is 30 parts per million.
So it's a pretty badass chemical with regards to the chemical in and of itself, and it is going to rise. So if you were to take a look at this, you would say, all right, it's got a molecular weight of 20. It's going to go up in the air, kind of like acetylene, right? It's lighter than acetylene, so it should go up faster than acetylene. But there's a couple other factors that start to play into it. One, if it's in the gaseous form and it's being released, it could be a little bit colder, which is going to lower its density. It's going to hang around a little bit longer.
Right.
And the other thing is that this stuff really interacts with the water that's in the air, kind of creating a slightly heavier acid than the actual HF molecule itself, which can also allow it to tend to kind of hang out and not move around. So because of this, we always want to use our meter readings to help us dictate our actions.
Okay, let's talk about that. But what about, let's go into the PID.
Okay.
Right? You got your photoionization detector, and is that going to work? No, because it has an IP of greater than 15 electron volts. So even if some of you, when I say 15, I mean 14, everybody gets what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So even if some of you overachievers out there with the high power bulbs won't pick it up, even the FIDs in a lot of cases, which have a theoretical over, 15.7, 15.1, won't pick this up.
Right. And the FIDs would require the carbon and all that other
which, again,
crap.
is not there. And this is a diatomic.
Right. It's a happy little molecule. It's an angry molecule. All right, let's take a look at some of the other physical properties, because this is one of those chemicals that is right around the zone of being a gas, being a liquid. So the boiling point is around 67 degrees Fahrenheit with a vapor pressure of about 788 millimeters of mercury. So we're right on the cusp of being basically a boiling liquid at room temperature. In fact, in colder temperatures, anything less than 67 degrees, it has the ability to be found as a liquid with a very, very, very high vapor pressure.
So what you're saying is this is not a liquid, because if it's over 760,
right,
it's always a gas.
It's a gas. Well, it's 760 at 67 degrees Fahrenheit, but look at the if the boiling point is 67 degrees, then as we drop below 67 degrees, we now drop below a vapor pressure of 760. So it's almost like boiling water, where it's a liquid, but it wants to be a gas. You'll probably find it as a highly evaporating liquid. As you start to drop down that temperature, the vapor pressure starts to drop down. You're going to see a little bit more of it as a liquid, but it's still going to be a gas. It wants to be a gas. It's going to boil off as a gas. FLIR, a global leader in CBRE and detection, announces a new version of the Identifinder R200 spectroscopic personal radiation detector that now detects and identifies neutrons in addition to gamma radiation. Neutrons penetrate material and travel far greater distances than any other form of radiation. A neutron detector has a better opportunity of detecting neutrons before any other associated type of radiation. This capacity provides an early warning to malicious material and provides a vital situational awareness to the user. This ruggedized, pager-sized detector can be mounted in a vehicle or worn for 24/7 radiation monitoring. While being worn, the Identifinder R200GN operates like a personal radiation detector, alarming when radiological hazards are detected. Responders can also use this device to perform isotope identification to help make safe and informed decisions. The Identifinder R200GN enables responders to determine whether a detection is a true threat or something a little more benign in nature. The R200GN uses the same Identifinder interface that responders have come to know, making it a seamless addition to the response toolkit. Find out more about the FLIR Identifinder R200GN by visiting www.flir.com/R200.
All right, now let's shoot over and take a look at it in its liquid form. And I really shouldn't use the word liquid because from what we just said, it's going to make it sound like it's a gas. Well, it's the gas form, but it's been chilled. Right, so it's hovering right on that 760 line, which is the liquid and the gas line where we would condense and evaporate. But it can't be further from the truth, actually.
Right, because when we speak of the liquid form, we're actually referring to the aqueous form of HF. The aqueous form of a substance is a chemical that's mixed with water. So HF is literally dissolved in the water in varying degrees, and we call this hydrofluoric acid.
Okay, now this is similar to the difference between anhydrous ammonia and ammonia, right? So anhydrous ammonia meaning it has no water in it, and ammonia means it's basically mixed with water. So that you use this to clean out countertops and make streak-free windows and whatnot. The HF is dissolved into the water, and this causes the H and the F to break off into separate ions.
Right, and just like ammonia, right? Ammonia, anhydrous ammonia is a gas. We see HF shipped in both forms, both a gas form and the aqueous or the liquid form. So both are out there being transported.
Right, and the more hydrogens and the more fluorines that dissociate from each other, and then it would be a stronger acid, right? Because the more they kind of accept and donate, the stronger it gets. Which is interesting, actually, because for all of the damage that this acid can do to tissues, rocks, glass, and et cetera, it's actually considered a weak acid.
Which, I got to tell you, before doing this show, I did not know. I would have categorized HF as a strong acid. So it's truly amazing to sit when you actually put scientific definitions to things, how a lot of times your perception of reality isn't actually real. All right, the amazing just the absolute abundance of things that this stuff does not play well with is phenomenal. So to give you a quick idea of it, here's an excerpt from an SDS sheet under incompatibilities. All right, this is an exact quote. The substance is incompatible with over 35 chemicals. Please refer to the NFA Fire Protection Guidelines for specifics. Heat, glass, concrete, and other silicone-bearing materials will yield silicone tetrafluoride. Pressure buildup from this process has been known to blow up glass containers. Carbonates, sulfides, cyanides will yield toxic gases such as carbon dioxide, hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen cyanide. Alkalides, some oxidizers, fluorine, and other water-reactive materials will cause strong exothermic reactions that can be violent. Reactions will most commonly produce with metals will produce hydrogen, corrosive to many materials, including leather, rubber, and many organics.
Now, that's incredible stuff there. But I want to go back and just, because I know, I can hear it right now, that there's people not understanding, wait a second, did they say strong acid, weak acid? Let's explain that a little bit more.
Okay, go ahead. So what would, because I think a lot of people out there would think that if an acid can do a lot of destruction, it would be a strong acid. So how is that an incorrect way of thinking about acids?
So I'm going to say 90% of the people that quote unquote call themselves hazmat techs think that there is one measurement for acids and bases.
Which I'm guessing the pH.
That's the pH scale. Dip the piece in there, tells you color. That's your play. Some of the deeper guys will say, well, there's also a strength, right? And this is the, we'll say the dilution factor, the molarity. We've discussed this in previous episodes. By all means, go back. We go at length in this. What we're talking about in this episode is the acids strong or weak, and it's a classification. It's like being A or B. What we're talking about is the acid's ability to either donate or accept and dissociate in water. So the better it dissociates, the better it makes that water a solution of acid, the stronger it would be regarded. So that's the best way I can explain it without getting really, really sciencey into this thing. I think that's the best way to do it. So HF is a poor dissociator into water. Therefore, it is considered a weak acid. I'm not saying it's not dilute. I'm just saying when it goes into water,
right,
it doesn't do it well.
Or the ability to destroy stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's a good point.
And this is a really good example, because if you were to take a look, like you're trying to choose PPE, you're trying to choose tactics, and you're kind of lazy, and you look at your SDS sheet and you're like, oh, look at this, classified as a weak acid. Don't worry about it. No big deal. No big deal. And here you have something that's going to really, really give you a really bad day.
Right. So this kind of stuff that we were just talking about with all that NFPA stuff, it has its own little world of myths and legends associated with it. Many of them have to do with the pathophysiology behind how this stuff actually hurts you.
Yeah, this is not like a normal acid that makes contact to your skin, all right? Most of the acids that we would consider to be acids, things that we would deal with, they're just going to give you a bad burn, but not HF. HF is like, it's like herpes. It's the gift that's going to just keep on giving.
Yeah, and that is very true. It will mess up your tissue just like a normal acid. It burns almost immediately, but the degree at which you get burned, and I'm quoting this, can be directly related to the concentration of the acid and the amount of time the acid was in direct contact with the tissue. Basic chemistry. All right, this is basic exposure control. You reduce your time, you increase your distance, you increase your shielding, and your outcome's best. We're saying that the dose versus time is going to directly get you.
Now, unfortunately, HF is one of the few acids that can cause a numbing sensation when exposed to the skin for short periods of time. Yeah, so many of the deaths, if you look at the case studies, many of the deaths associated with the skin exposure was because people didn't have any idea that they were even contaminated with the substance. So therefore, decon was delayed and medical treatment was delayed.
And just for your information of how much this stuff takes, it typically takes about 25 square centimeters, which is roughly the size of your palm.
Yeah.
That's a fatal shot.
Yeah.
You put your palm into this stuff, you're pretty much done. So we have to slow the burn down, right? And how would this product keep hurting us? First thing it does is it goes deep.
Real deep. Real deep.
This is...
Hey, baby.
I was going to go into like my jazz 90 jazz voice, but it goes deep into your tissue, right? And this is accomplished because the fluorine ion is highly lipophilic, okay? What that means is you got lipophobic and lipophilic. Philic means it loves it. And so this stuff loves getting into your fats.
Yeah. And as the fats draw this deep into the tissue, all right, it's brought into the cells. And in the cells, it starts kind of like partying and mixing with some metals, all right? Your calcium, your magnesium, all right? It's going to get in there. It's going to play with these things, and not good things are going to happen.
Now, what you just said is it gets into the cells and goes for the calcium, magnesium, but I've heard it goes for the bones.
No.
I'm lost now.
No. You know what happens is it's well known for going to calcium. And the most people are like, oh, calcium bones. It goes for your bones. Not so much. It's actually going for the free calcium and magnesium ions that are floating around in your cells and in your bloodstream.
Interesting, because these are nasty little fellows, and because it reacts with the calcium magnesium, it's actually forming crystals, right? And these crystals fall out of solution and then make calcium and magnesium ions that were once floating around and ready to be used, but now they're unavailable for use.
Yeah, and this is kind of unfortunate because the use of magnesium and calcium within the body, a lot of things kind of depend on that. There's a couple really vital functions that really rely on calcium ions.
All right, give me one example then.
All right, well, every time there's a signal going from one neuron to another, that uses calcium to communicate from one neuron to another. So in a sense, calcium is what our central nervous system uses to communicate with our body. Without the calcium, no communication.
Actually, another one is the heart, right? The heart uses calcium and potassium to do the lub-dub, right? So these are different channels, the calcium channel and the other ion channels that rely on the existence of calcium. Actually, not even the existence, but the availability of calcium.
Right.
And when this stuff's in the system, she no work so good.
No, No, she's not working. There's other crazy things that happen, all right? And this drop in the calcium and the magnesium in your serum is actually called hypokalemia and hypomagnesia. And it's one of the driving forces behind the extreme pain and cramping that is associated with the last few hours on Earth after being exposed to this stuff.
Excellent. So then the next question becomes how long would it take for it to hurt you, and how long? Sorry, I didn't say that right. How much does it take to hurt you, and how long?
So we can go through a couple examples because there's no real definitive concentration size thing. It's just kind of, here's a couple good examples, right? A 3% solution. All right, so 3%, an acid that's in a 3% solution, it can take hours, even overnight period before the patient is even aware that they've been exposed. And that's just talking about oh my God, I got burnt.
Right. And we're talking even 1%, which again, the rough medical term for 1% of your body is basically your palm.
Right.
Right. So your palm is roughly 1% of your body surface. If I expose that to 50% concentration, 50% acid, 50% water, it's enough to produce hypocalcemia.
Right. And 5% of your body with any concentration of the acid is enough to lower the calcium in your blood serum.
Now, 2.5% of your body surface, if you get contaminated with that, it can be lethal within 2 to 3 hours, right? So with 2.5% body surface contamination is the minimum needed for lower concentrations, and that's starting your bad day.
Yeah, that's a really bad day. So we're going to go into a couple of real-life examples. These are actual case studies. We're going to be pretty much reading them verbatim. So a direct quote from a case study. 37-year-old male laboratory technician was performing an acid digestion of an oil well core and a ditch sample with 70% concentrated hydrofluoric acid in a fume cupboard. He was believed to be seated when he knocked over a small quantity, approximately 100 to 230 milliliters of hydrofluoric acid onto his lap, splashing both of his thighs. He continued to deteriorate despite subcutaneous injections of calcium glutamate, and he was administered IV calcium and magnesium. After 7 days, his left leg was amputated, and he subsequently
Subsequently.
He subsequently died from multi-organ failure 15 days after the hydrofluoric acid spill.
Jeez. How about this? An earlier fatality in 1980 resulted from burns from only 2.5% of the body. The worker who was dealing with a solution containing 5% hydrofluoric acid had gloves that contained a pinhole. And when she consulted her doctor days later for pain in her fingers, and the non-specific burn ointment was applied, something probably like Silvadene or something like that. And after several days, the damage had developed to the extent that when, still in pain, she presented at the hospital, it was necessary to amputate her finger due to the seriousness and irreversible damage that the acid had done to the bone. Small takeaway from this is that the calcium glutamate, that is actually the serum for this. If you get the calcium glutamate, which comes out like a toothpaste, it looks like, you can give this drug and it will drop your levels. It will kind of redirect the hydrofluoric to it rather than your body. It's much more rich.
Right. It's kind of like in the firehouse when guys are hungry, right? And you get that extra cheese and you put the extra cheese off to the side so the guys eat the extra cheese instead of the cheese for the meal.
Yeah, it's a diversion.
It's a diversion, all right? While it's a great idea to make sure this drug is on standby on the scene, just in case something fails or something goes wrong, it is not a fail-safe and it is not a magic pill. There are a lot of factors that go into living and dying. I know that kind of sounds a little crazy, but there really are. So don't do something stupid just because you think you have an antidote, because you don't.
Yeah. So let's talk about the PPE selection. This is where everybody always goes with this thing. And metering is going to be kind of limited, to be honest with you. There's not much use to metering.
No, pH paper is really
pH paper. So knowing your material is going to be a big deal. So due to this nature of the HF, and specifically what we're talking about is the vapor pressure of it, the low ideal H, and the acidity and the ability to be absorbed through the skin. I don't think there's anybody going to disagree. This is almost a guaranteed level A job.
Yeah.
Right? I think this is a do not pass, do not collect $200. This is a level A. And I am not a fan of level A.
Right.
This is one of those ones where I will not give you a pushback on that one.
Yeah, without a doubt. But now with that being said, all right, we always say that these are our starting points.
Yes.
And we have to take everything into consideration. Remember, the people working around this stuff on a regular basis, they're not in a level A. So use your meters, use your size up, and use the situation to determine what's best. We kind of say the exact same thing when we talk about fentanyl, right? Like, it is something that is bad, but look at the situation and see if the level of protection matches exactly what's going on.
Right. And this is definitely one of those ones where you want to check and cross-check every single piece of PPE to make sure that it's compatible. In order for your ensemble to be labeled a Class A, a Level A, everything has to be compatible and tested together.
Right.
So the newer generation of stuff is basically you shouldn't be using tape.
No.
If you're using tape, that you're probably violating the NFPA now.
Yeah.
So,
but in the same regard, there are level A's out there that they're not compatible with hydrofluoric acid.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So know what you have. And just like the case studies we just talked about, even a small imperfection was possibly death.
Yeah.
I mean, the lady lost the fingers. A pinhole. Something you probably wouldn't notice.
Right. What if that had turned into a rip?
Yeah.
Then you would be able to expose your entire palm in your hand, which Bob said earlier is the amount needed to literally die.
Yeah.
So a little touch on decon. While I would prefer not to use a water system because I don't want the crap spraying everywhere, I would probably do kind of a dry decon, or I may do some kind of a decon in which you're kind of wiping the contaminants off of you.
Maybe giving a little spritz.
Maybe a spritz, and then maybe after the spritz, you
just a little wipe
again.
Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
Right, but alas, that is a topic for another show.
If you have a moment, please head over to iTunes and leave us a positive review. And don't forget to check out the book, National Emergency Response Hazmat Drills, or NERD, on Amazon.
Well, that wraps up another episode of the Hazmat Guys.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube channel at The Hazmat Guys. And take a moment to call our comment hotline at 843-628-1484 and go to www.thehazmatguys.com and sign up for the newsletter.
We seriously look forward to your feedback about any of the information provided, and we also want to hear about interesting incidents that you were a part of. So you can send us a note at feedback@thehazmatguys.com. And remember, any of the information that you share with us, if we put it on air, can always remain anonymous.
Remember, guys, don't just get on the job. Get into the job.